Good evening, everyone. It's Gordon Causey and Owl, Candy the Wonder Pup who needs her nails trimmed. And she's eyeing this. So we'll get that out of the way. There you go. Uh, Thanks for watching. Starting this a little later than I had initially planned. I'd wanted to start at 9:30. Stuff happens. Welcome to my pathetic and miserable little YouTube channel. It's 10:02 p.m. and today is Friday the 22nd of September 2023. This video is going to be a bit of a synthesizing of things I've said and written in previous videos, but I'm kind of trying to bring everything together. And I'm actually reading something I've written, and I believe I've titled this how gender ideology ties into the Great Reset. And I'm going to be bringing a number of components together. But before I get going, I'm an old, white, straight Christian male. And so for many, that means that anything I say should immediately be tossed into the trash can. Basically, I'm the living embodiment of cancel culture. Now, calling myself old might be stretching things. I'm 57 to be precise, and my youngest child is in grade 5. So in terms of what's happening in the educational system, I do have some skin in the game. And many considered me to be right wing or conservative minded. And it's ironic because I used to be considered a liberal. And in point of fact, I still consider myself a liberal. That is, a liberal in the classic sense of the word. However, with the way the culture has shifted, many now consider me, as I say, right wing. And I feel as though my opinions, by and large, have pretty much remained the same, but the ground underneath my feet has shifted so much in the broader culture that things that used to be considered left-wing are now considered on the right side of the political spectrum. But that's enough preamble. To start off with, I have a problem with this word, trans, because even just acknowledging that term, it makes it seem like this is something that is real. What is real is that there are two sexes or two genders, male and female. People either have XX or XY chromosomes. Now, yes, there is an incredibly rare condition, which is referred to as intersex, where someone is born with chromosomes that their chromosomes are messed up. The way it manifests, a person can be born with both types of genitalia. A child can be born with external male organs and internal female organs. And when it comes to intersex, that is a medical condition. And this whole trans business has nothing to do with that. Trans ideology says that someone born XY can choose to identify as XX. And then as a result of that, society has to bend over backwards to accommodate this person's identity. And likewise, if someone is born XX and wants to identify as XY. And many simply, they blindly accept this notion that gender is not binary, that there are basically a limitless number of potential genders. And I do my best to listen and try to walk in the shoes of those with whom I disagree. I try and see things from their point of view. And to a degree, I do get this mindset, or at least I think I do. Some men, boys, are more feminine in nature. Some guys like wearing dresses, and they're more comfortable in their own skin when dressing and behaving like a female. And again, that applies to women and girls too. Not every female, XX, not every female embraces being a girly girl. And I don't have an issue with that at all. But in fairness, in trying to see things from the opposing point of view, a guy choosing to wear women's clothing, acting and behaving like a woman, especially, say, a kid in middle school, 11, 12, 13 years of age, whoa, that is a recipe for bullying and possibly even physical assault. And I have no doubt it happens. It happened when I was growing up, and I don't doubt that it happens now. Yes, I do think society has changed a lot. I do think we're more tolerant and more accepting and more compassionate, but some things still stay the same. Maybe to lesser degrees, but they're still there. For myself, tolerance, compassion should be understood. But the question comes, where do we draw the line? And here, this is where we get into conflict, because the so-called trans activists are bent on completely reordering society. That's why we have mothers now being referred to at times as birthing persons. It's why we have guys putting on a woman's bathing suit and winning NCAA sanctioned swimming meets. It's why we have guys winning beauty pageants and being crowned as homecoming queens. Now, as a Christian, I know that the Bible exhorts God's people to protect the vulnerable. And in scripture, that's often personified as orphans and widows. Look after the orphans and widows. Well, Mr. XY, you can put on a dress and act like a woman if you like. But when you start taking away the rights of real women and real girls, that's where I personally draw the line. And seeing this event that happened on Wednesday, the 20th of September in Canada-wide, this Million March for Kids, I'm very gratified to see that a lot of people share my point of view. The sad thing is that ultimately this is not going to end well, because at its core, this is part of a Marxist ideology, and it's all part of an agenda that is pushing us toward a totalitarian dystopian future, and it's frightening to contemplate. You can call it the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2035, put whatever label you want on it. I'm calling it the Great Reset. Now, in terms of the gender debate, nobody was asking for this debate. It was thrust on us, first by academics, principally in disciplines like the humanities and liberal arts. And those are disciplines which are absolute breeding grounds, and they're full of Marxist ideologues. They breed Marxist ideologues, and they're full of them. And then it was picked up by both the corporate and government sectors, with organizations like the World Economic Forum basically facilitating, coordinating. So I want to go into a bit of what Marxism is. In classic Marxism, history is defined as a class or a political struggle. Most often it's presented as a struggle between the labor force or proletariat and the industrial or corporate sector. So you have labor on the one hand versus those who own what Marx referred to as the means of production. But the central point of Marxism, in my view, is to foment division, to promote struggle. And this is why gender identity in our academic institutions is presented as a so-called societal construct. Left-wing academics present it as an imposed system, the same way that capitalism is imposed on the working class to oppress and dehumanize the proletariat. It's not fair. That's something I think probably just about every young person has said at one point or another, and quite often more than once in their lives. It's not fair. That resonates with kids who are idealistic. And to add further weight to this so-called gender debate is we're told they're teaching in the schools that this is a patriarchal system, an imposed patriarchal, meaning male dominated system. And young people have been raging against the machine for generations. Fight the power. Don't trust anyone over 30. It's been going on forever, probably for most of human history. And now we have academics throwing fuel on that fire. They're spurring young, idealistic students and filling them up with thinly veiled Marxist rhetoric. And Marxist ideals, Marxist beliefs have always resonated with young people, especially in universities, because it's a very pleasing apple to look at, but it's dangerous when you take a bite. What's fascinating about what's going on, scary, yes, but it's also fascinating, is that this is not classic Marxism. Karl Marx was not a politician. He was an economist and a philosopher, a writer. He never lived to see the theories that he put down on paper put into practical use. It was men like Lenin in Soviet era Russia and Mao in China who used Marx's ideology in the political sphere, and we all should know what the result was. If you value and cherish liberty and freedom, this is not good. This is scary. Fomenting division, dividing the population, is a political tool. Whether it ends up as a communist, Marxist-Leninist type system or not depends upon those driving the agenda, those with their hands on the wheel. And in the current situation in this world, this agenda is not being pursued towards a communist end, but rather to one which is it more closely resembles fascism. Now, fascism and communism traditionally are seen as being diametrically opposed. Yet here we have an ultimately fascist agenda employing Marxist ideology to pursue its ends. And the difference between fascism and Marxism, it boils down to what that earlier term, what Marx called the means of production. In a communist system, the means of production are owned by the government, while in a fascist system, those same means of production are controlled by the industrialist or corporate class. And this is where an outfit like the World Economic Forum, the WEF, this is where they come into play. Klaus Schwab's little club combines three forces: academia, the government, and the corporate sector to push the same agenda. Ultimately, this was the same agenda that the Nazi Party assumed or pursued: world domination, a one world government. Academia, academics, they provide a veneer of intelligence. Typically, they'll take politics and disguise it and present it as science. The corporate sector, including the media, obviously, for all important indoctrination and propaganda. The corporate sector finances the operation, and government is there to provide a legal framework to make it all legit. And if we're going to fight back against this agenda, Sun Tzu put it best in his seminal treatise on conflict, written something like 2,500 years ago. The book is called the Art of War. And one of the first rules in the Art of War is to know your enemy. And what we need to know is that we are fighting a multi-headed beast. I mean, we already went through the whole COVID nonsense. And I, for one, see a very strong possibility for it to come back. We all went through lockdowns and people divided into you were either one of the essentials or the non-essentials. We had masked up faces, dehumanizing the population. People were living in fear of an invisible microscopic virus that's invisible to the naked eye. And now this debate over something that doesn't even exist, fighting over so-called trans rights, when ultimately there is no such thing as a trans man or a trans woman. There are men with feminine dispositions and behaviors, and likewise in reverse with women. But you can't say that in today's world, because you'll have some Facebook expert will state categorically that there are more than two genders. I know this. I read it. It's science. So, and throw into this, we have an escalating war between Russia and Ukraine. And don't believe anything anyone says on either side of that, because the first casualty of war is truth. Finding the truth. When you have war going on, every side lies. In a war between two countries, both sides are lying. We have potential for conflict between China and Taiwan. We have this climate emergency with alarmist propaganda surrounding that, and it's going into overdrive. I think Biden just announced the climate core. He's being screamed at to declare a climate emergency, but rather than doing that, I forget how many thousands of individuals are being drafted or will be able to apply for membership in the climate core. Top of all that, we have the economy of the Western world. It's teetering. Inflation is taking a bite out of everyone's wallet. And there's even talk of something even worse than inflation, and that is deflation. If you think inflation is bad, wait until you see deflation, because deflation encourages you not to spend your money. Inflation actually is good for the economy. It encourages people to spend their money, because if you spend what it will buy today, that $10 that you have in your hand now will buy more today than it will next week or next month. Whereas deflation, well, you better hold on to your money. And then throw in AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics. This is a multi-headed beast that's rising out of the sea. And if that sounds like a biblical reference, it is. And ultimately, there is only one in whom victory is assured. And I know not everyone listening to this is a Christian. The population writ large, we've been programmed and conditioned to believe that only ignorant people profess Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And programming is something that is not easily forgotten. It becomes part of a person's identity. Well, I know this has gone on longer than I wanted, but there's a time coming when professing faith and declaring Jesus as Lord will come with dire consequences in this lifetime and ultimate glory in the life that is to come. So that's what I wanted to share. I kept it under 20 minutes. I was reading 1980s Raffian, or Rail Fan, can't exactly read. Top chat, let's see, live chat. I saw 1980s Airplane, remember it well. I don't want to get into anything about religion. Oh, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. I don't have, I have enough time applying the brakes without imbibing. So anyway, I'm going to end it there. Ralphan, thanks for watching. Appreciate the engagement. Not as much as normally, but there is peace to be found by getting into relationship with Jesus Christ. Because this war is coming. It's coming. How fast? I don't know. I thought we'd have a climate emergency declared by now, by the time the summer ended. Well, we're into the fall now. It hasn't been declared. Biden did executive order creating something called the Climate Corps. Reminds me of the Peace Corps under John F. Kennedy, but we'll see what comes. Anyway, God bless. And if you like, share, subscribes, everyone knows the drill. I appreciate them as much as anyone. We'll talk to you soon. Love you too, Rafian.